Wow, this is amazing. All that glitters does not have to be diamonds or gold. It could be table salt or crystals. Bonjour, welcome to Miss Lucy's Classic Cajun Culture and Cooking. And I'm your host, Miss Lucy. Today we have a fantastic and exciting show because we are in the salt mines. Then we'll be going to the kitchen and preparing a wonderful meal using this great salt. So you stay with us, Sha. We'll be right back.
The Louisiana Seafood Marketing Board is a proud sponsor of Lucy's Classic Cajun Culture and Cooking Show. The Bayou State enjoys an outstanding culinary tradition. At the center of that tradition is seafood. And no wonder, Louisiana is one of the nation's leading seafood suppliers. And the Louisiana Department of Economic Development. Whether it's crawfish processing or meat packing, Louisiana is the business location for food processing. With infrastructure, site selection assistance, and workforce training. Louisiana, the shape of food technology.
What makes Louisiana so special? Our beautiful bayous and grand plantation homes surrounded by old oak trees. Our music and joie de vivre. Our unique way of cooking the bounty we harvest from the land and the water. It's our communities, our businesses, our people. That's why I love Louisiana and why I want to share my precious Cajun heritage with you. Thanks for joining me in my kitchen today. I have a wonderful menu, and I'll be using one of my very essential seasonings, salt. What is it about salt that brings out a special flavor in foods? And where does salt actually come from? Would you believe? Right here in Louisiana. We'll even venture to the salt mines after a while. But first, we need to get started on this meal here. Of course, what I'm going to fix for you today, as soon as I get this fire going, is some cabbage rolls, which was introduced to me by my mama. Of course, my mama taught me how to cook. And I'm sure her mama taught her how to cook because I also cooked with my grandmother, and she was a real good cook. So what I've done already is I have browned this ground beef in this pot. And brown it real well. Now, before I did this, I boiled some chicken. And what I did after the chicken was boiled, I took the meat off of the bones. Of course, you can save the stock because you could add stock, chicken stock to this if you need some, if you need some moisture in your cabbage rolls. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add this to this pot here. And I'm going to stir it up real well. Noisy cook today, not just a messy cook. Guess all good cooks are noisy and messy. Okay, you blend this in real well. Let me lower this fire. Okay, one good thing about this, you can always lower your heat. Now, okay, now this is going to cook together. But also, you're going to add onions and bell pepper. And of course, last but not least, celery. Actually, what I'm doing, I guess, is I'm making a dirty rice dressing and with the chicken in it. Or people call it, dirty rice or rice dressing. Or, I've heard it called so many things, but we call it just rice dressing because actually, I'll show you why. Guess what we have in it? We have rice. So this is my rice I'm going to add to this, which has been cooked. Okay? Cooked and refrigerated because you want to add cold rice to this. And actually, you can add more rice if you want to. That's what Cajun cooking's all about. You can do exactly as you prefer. So, all right. Looks like it's cooking real well. After I've sauteed all my onions and bell pepper and celery, added my rice to it. See how pretty this is? Of course, after I get this done, I'm going to add, of course, my famous ingredients. And the most essential part of this show is salt. Now, okay, got my salt and my pepper. And a little dab of red hot sauce, this pepper sauce, this Louisiana's so famous about. You don't want to add too much because you can always add more. You can't take away. Now, what I'm going to do with this is that I'm going to take cabbage like this, and I'm going to blanch it. And they will look like this. Of course, these beautiful little leaves, you don't want to cook them too much because they will break. Let me add some onion tops to this because that adds to the flavor. Very good. Now, okay, you want to stuff this. So I'm going to add this to my cabbage, just a dab, okay. And you roll them just like you do a cigar. Take it like this, just like that. See? So simple, quick and easy. I'll do another one to make sure you got the gist of it, okay? Very good. Now, all right, I'll put this in here. You can have big leaves, and you know, actually, you don't want to blanch it too much, but you want to make sure your cabbage is partially done, okay? Now, throw them in here because I've already prepared these before, so I'm going to bake these now. You add a little dab of water to this, and you cover it. And you bake it in the oven for about a half hour at 350 degrees, which I'm going to do now. Okay, that all out of the way. Don't waste that, so. All right, now, well, let me show you a part of Louisiana I've never seen before. This was the most exciting adventure I have ever been on as I travel way below the surface of the earth in the salt mine at Avery Island. Going down in the salt mines. Ooh, very spooky. Seems like we're going down in a giant hole. We have arrived at last, an experience of a lifetime with salt all around us. I never imagined that salt mines were so beautiful. 1,200 feet below. This is as far down as I ever want to go in this life or the next. Look at those huge bulldozers pushing tons of salt. Reminds me of a science fiction movie I once saw. This is my good friend, Gill Elrod, and he's the plant manager at the Cargill Salt Mines in Avery Island. And Gill, it's been a pleasure being here. It's been a wonderful experience, just fantastic. So how long have you been in operation here?
Well, this dome has been continuously mined since 1898.
Wow, that's a long time. Right.
Continuously mining, that's right.
And how large is it?
Well, the dome itself is actually about 1.5 miles in rough circular diameter. It's a little over 45,000 feet deep.
Wow, we almost went that deep, I think, this morning.
Not quite.
Well, not quite. Well, what kind of salt comes out of this?
We mine salt for the chemical industry. We mine salt for the road de-icing industry, for the agricultural industry, also for the drilling oil mud.
Oh, right, okay.
Industry.
So you really put out a lot of salt for a lot of wonderful products here on the island. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, very good.
Look at those sparkles. This is awesome, just unbelievable. Who would ever think that below us on the coast of Louisiana there would be such a treasure? Our salt domes contribute to so many industries that affect our daily lives. I didn't run into too many Cajuns down here. Guess they're all at the Fado Dough. In the darkness on the ground, I almost feel like I'm gazing at the stars in the sky. Now, what surprised me that table salt didn't come from this salt mine operation. Another process is used to retrieve this salt that we use in cooking. I'll take you to that refinery in just a bit. But first, let me show you how I like to cook my eggplant, which will accommodate my cabbage rolls. And this is the salt piece that I picked up at the salt mines. Really was impressive. Now, I've got my grease real hot here, which is very important. And I've got my eggplant. I've already partially peeled it. And to show you how to peel an eggplant, you just take it just like this. It's very easy to do. Be careful, don't cut yourself. All right. And then I like to slice it. I like to slice it kind of not too thin because I love that eggplant. So I just kind of cut it up like this, which is just about this thickness. So then, of course, I've whipped some eggs here. You run it through coat it real good. And the egg here. Then you put it in flour and you coat that real well with the flour. All right, I'm going to use these pieces. And of course, my grease is hot, and my onions are telling me that because they're sizzling. That serves a twofold purpose. It tells me when my grease is ready. Put this a little higher because you do not want to really cook this too low because it'll really absorb the grease in there. You don't want your eggplants to be greasy. All right. Now, I never season my flour when I cook eggplants because when my eggplants are through cooking, that's when I season my eggplants with salt and pepper. Only salt and pepper. I'm going to do this. I guess I can put a few in there. Very good. Oh, I love this. This is very, very good. But you need to eat these right after they're cooked. So you don't want them to get cold. All right. You get a good golden brown. That's my favorite. Okay. Now, got these done. So while this is cooking, I'm going to teach you how I like to make a very special salad dressing, which is just wonderful. You can make this and keep it in the refrigerator. The longer you refrigerate it, the better it gets. First of all, you add some onions in, stand by, the little pint jar. Every kitchen has got to have a jar, okay? Onions, and of course this is celery. This is bell pepper. Just throw everything in the jar, and you can put as much as you want. Got some garlic. I like a lot of garlic. Okay. Of course, you've got your olives, your chopped up olives, very fine. Oops. Of course, this is olive oil. I like a lot of olive oil. Okay. Now we're going to add some Worcestershire. And this is anchovies. A lot of people don't like anchovies, but I promise you, you'll love it in here. This is lemon juice, thyme, which I need a lot of that on my hands. Oregano, put that, marjoram, and rosemary. So we put this all together. Shake, 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 real good. See, I'm good at shaking. You just, woo! Get the cover out, of course. Throw it on top, and you toss it real well. It's wonderful. It's great. Now, my eggplants are browning real well, so I'm going to flip them over and take them out of the pot. Always taking salt for granted, but not anymore. I finally learned exactly where it came from and what it took to process it. Another learning experience that I really enjoyed was visiting the salt refinery. That's where one of my seasonings comes from. It's quite a different operation from the salt mines. Basically, the salt is extracted from a well. First, plain salt is pumped down into the salt dome. Then salt water is extracted from the well and pumped into brine tanks. We're at Mission Control at Cargill Refinery in Breaux Bridge, and this is the plant manager and my good friend, Gene Chauffe. And Gene, how long have you been working here?
I've been here about 15 years.
Wonderful. How long has the plant been in operation?
The original facility was built around 1942, and that was originally the Cargill Salt Company. It's a family out of New Iberia that owned it.
Yes.
Cargill purchased it in '71, and we completely rebuilt it in '80, and went through another rebuild in '94 and '95.
Great. And what kinds of salt do you produce here?
This is an evaporated salt plant, and what we make is completely different from what you saw on the ground. This is generally high purity salt, table salt that you would normally cook with.
Right, what I use on my show, right?
Yes, ma'am. And we produce salt for food processors, pharmaceutical companies, and the oil field uses a lot of salt.
And you told me the dyeing was used also, the dyeing industry used
yes,
salt.
ma'am.
That's wonderful.
Yes, the textile people use salt when they dye clothes because salt is cheap and it helps the dye go into the fabric.
That is great. Well, I tell you, Gene, I have learned so much from you today. This has been a very interesting visit, and thank you so much for having it. We really appreciate that.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
The finished products are flour salt for baking, crystal salt for crackers and pretzels, table salt for seasoning, and salt pellets for water softeners. Shake, shake, shake. This is the biggest salt shaker I've ever seen. Just a little too big for my kitchen. Now this is more the size that I'd use. Shake, shake, and whoop, I spilled some on the floor, so I guess I better throw it over my left shoulder for good luck. But now for that wonderful fig cake that I promised you, because every good meal like this deserves a wonderful dessert. And I'm going to forfeit some of my figs to make a fig cake, and that's not easy to do because I love raw figs. They're my favorite. Of course, everything's my favorite. I have already whipped up some butter and sugar in here, which that's what you have to do. To this, I'm going to add my eggs. Okay, good. And whip that up very well. Yeah. Okay. All right, they told me not to sing, but I just can't help myself. When I'm happy, I like to sing. So, all right, now, to this, you have to add your dry ingredients next. But first of all, you have some baking soda. Okay, you mix that up together. And naturally, cinnamon, which really will make that taste good. And nutmeg. Of course, you know this is my little space machine. See the nutmeg that comes out? Nothing like fresh nutmeg. Boy, it makes this fig cake taste just great. My fig tarts usually are good too with this little nutmeg thing. And salt. Okay, very good. Now, of course, I'm going to add this into here. Cajuns improvise. Remember that when you're in the kitchen, everything is fair, just like in Love and War. Mix this. I got this recipe from a friend of mine. Of course, I love to use this, but I just hate giving up my figs because that is the favorite part that when I have in the, in the summertime, you got this wonderful figs, and Mom and Daddy had a big fig tree, and it's still there, and I hope that my little nephew can really enjoy it as much as I did. Now, I'm adding vinegar to milk because what you need for this is buttermilk, and vinegar in milk makes buttermilk. So if you don't have buttermilk, like I didn't have today, you use vinegar in milk, okay? Okay. I don't have 3 hands, but all cooks need that, you know that. But that's okay, I make do. All righty, mix that up real well. And that last ingredient will be just a killer. All right? Yeah. All right. Now. Okay. Last but not least is my figs, and I sure hate to. I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to sample one of these to make sure they're good. I picked these. And of course, I really did make the preserves. I like them whole. I never peel them. I just cut the top off of them, and then I cook them with a lot of sugar. And got to mash them down real well. Of course, this is my mama's masher. They don't make them like this anymore. And so I love to use it. It makes that cake even more special. All right. This is doing good. Mash them down real good. All right. Now, I'm going to bring this over here. Oops, I guess I better put something underneath here. Of course, all good cooks are messy cooks, but I hate to have to be too messy because I got to clean up after myself, and that's really the tough part. Now, to my batter, I'm going to add my good old favorite figs here. All right. this is really a wonderful cake. It takes a long time to bake it, and you have to make sure that it's well baked because it, you know, you want that dough to cook real good in with the figs. You mix the figs in real well with that. Okay, look at that. Ooh, looks good enough to eat raw. Here's my pecans that I'm going to add to this. Okay, very good. And mix that in real good. Yum. I can't wait. This, of course, now this is the finished product, so it's really pretty, as you know, and it is tasty. But I'm going to bake this one, and we'll have 2 fig cakes to eat today. Okay. Now, what you need to bake this cake in is a bundt pan. Make sure it's very heavy because you don't want it to burn. If you use a light burnt pan, it may burn. You spray it very well with that nonstick coating because the first time I baked this, I didn't spray it well enough. And when I turned it upside down, I mean, there was a little bit left on the bottom of it. So you don't want that to happen because you don't want to waste those figs. No, that's the main thing. Those are hard to come by. Okay, very good. Now, ooh, just leave it out like this. All righty. Almost want to lick the spatula like my granddaughter does. Okay. Eat it a little bit. You bake it for 350 or 300 rather for an hour and a half, and it'll be well done. Let me put this in the oven. Of course. Now, so we've got our cake finished. Of course, these cabbage rolls were a labor of love. You know, it's hard to make those, and I can't wait to sample them. So I'm going to fix me a plate, and I'll show you how I eat them. Of course, you've got your seasoning in there already. And I can't wait to eat these eggplants either. Very good. So what I do, and you need to remember this, I add just a dab of pepper. I've already added my salt and my eggplant. Right on top of the cabbage rolls, you want to line this up with just a little bit of that Louisiana hot sauce, pepper sauce. Okay. This is worth all the work that I put into this. These eggplants just go with it so well. You know something about me, I like my own cooking. So, delicious. Definitely. I'm going to eat some of this salad too in a bit. Put me another one of these because one's not going to be enough. I can just see it now. I'm at the LSU Rural Life Museum on Burden Plantation in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I have really been enjoying looking at these old-timey kitchen gadgets. My favorite, of course, is the Nutcracker. Look at this little fella's detailed face. He is just precious. Of course, I have something very precious that I want to show you also from my past. This was my grandmother's salt holder, and she used this in her kitchen every day. She used the salt out of this to sprinkle on her meats and her food. So she has taught me a lot, and I also have been enjoying using her salt holder. I also want to share this letter with you today. This is from Ms. Holly Guidry, and Holly is from Tarrytown, Louisiana. Holly writes, "Hi, my name is Holly Guidry. I watch your show every weekend, and I wanted to write you and tell you how much you have helped me understand about Cajun cooking and about the background. I met my husband a year ago, and he moved me to Louisiana from Nebraska, and I didn't know anything about Cajun cooking until I saw your show. I just want to say thank you very much for sharing your family recipes with everyone and giving the rest of the world a chance to know what good Cajun food is like. Thank you for your time, Holly." Thank you, Holly, for writing to me. I really appreciate you doing this, as I appreciate all my fan mail. I encourage you to keep writing to me because I enjoy hearing from you. Thank you very much for visiting with me today, and next week we'll have another wonderful time together.
Il y en a des petites blondes façam mar.
Look us up on the World Wide Web at lpb.org.
The Louisiana Seafood Marketing Board is a proud sponsor of Lucy's Classic Cajun Culture and Cooking Show. The Bayou State enjoys an outstanding culinary tradition. At the center of that tradition is seafood. And no wonder, Louisiana is one of the nation's leading seafood suppliers. And the Louisiana Department of Economic Development. Whether it's crawfish processing or meat packing, Louisiana is the business location for food processing, with infrastructure, site selection assistance, and workforce training. Louisiana, the shape of food technology.